The boy's bare feet slapped against the hot tar of Adeola Street. He wasn't running for fun. He wasn't running from trouble. He was running toward it. His mother was dying. Her belly was heavy, far too heavy for the frail frame that carried it. And in that belly, the child kicked, desperate to be born. But the hospital door would not open for the poor. And poor was all Joseph had ever been. Yet today, he had seen something impossible. A man step out of a black Range Rover, his white coat as crisp as his gold wristwatch, the kind of man who could save a life with a word. They called him Dr. Williams, billionaire surgeon, Lagos miracle man. Joseph's voice cracked as he shouted after the man, "Doctor, please. My mama, she's..." The rest was lost in the honk of a danfo bus. What happened next would not only decide if his mother lived, but would change Joseph's life in ways even a billionaire could never predict. Welcome to Becky's Stories. Sit back, relax, and grab your favorite drink, because at the end of this story, you will hit the subscribe button, comment, like, share, and request for more fascinating stories. This wasn't the first time Joseph had begged for something, but it would be the last time he begged for his mother. The one-room shack in Makoko was small enough that when Joseph stretched his arms, his palms brushed both mud walls. The roof was patched with rusted zinc sheets, each one singing its own note when the rain came. It wasn't much, but to Joseph it was home. His mother, Zainab, filled that space with warmth no money could buy. Every morning before sunrise, she would sit on the low wooden stool, wrapping her head in a faded yellow scarf, and hum soft house of lullabies as she peeled sweet potatoes for roasting. The smell of the roasting tubers would drift out into the narrow alley, calling neighbors to her little charcoal stand. Zainab wasn't just a mother. She was a storyteller, healer, and fighter. She could turn a dry piece of bread into a meal with nothing but palm oil and pepper. And she could silence the rowdiest of street boys with a single look. Joseph knew, because he had been one of them. But lately, her laughter had been thinner. The hand that once kneaded dough now trembled when she poured water into the pot. Her belly grew rounder with each passing week, yet her step slowed, her breath shortened. Joseph noticed, and it frightened him. Still, life went on. They had their morning routine. She'd wake him with a tap on his feet, teasing, "Get up, lazy bones, before the sun catches you sleeping." They'd eat roasted yam together, dipping it into spicy sauce, sharing one plate. On good days, she'd tell him stories of his late father, a fisherman who had died when Joseph was just a baby, swallowed by the sea during a sudden storm. On bad days, she would lie back on their thin mattress, clutching her belly, her face pale, whispering that it was just tiredness. Joseph didn't believe her. One evening, after the market had closed, Joseph returned to find her seated outside, staring at the moon. Her scarf had slipped, and the moonlight revealed beads of sweat on her forehead despite the cool night air. "Mama," he said softly, kneeling beside her, "is it the baby?" She smiled faintly, brushing his cheek with trembling fingers. "It's nothing I can't handle." But her eyes, those soft brown eyes, betrayed her fear. The real trouble began one humid Wednesday afternoon. The air felt heavy, like a wet blanket. Joseph had been running errands for Mama Basira, the shop owner, when he heard the commotion. People were shouting near their alley. He dropped the loaf of bread in his hand and ran. There, at the entrance to their shack, Zainab lay on the ground. A small crowd had gathered, neighbors, wide-eyed children, a few old women murmuring prayers. Her yellow scarf was stained dark red. "Mama." Joseph's voice cracked as he pushed through the crowd, falling to his knees beside her. Her breathing was shallow, her lips dry. The baby kicked once, twice, as if sensing the chaos. "She needs a doctor," someone said. "Yes, but not here," another replied grimly. "Government hospital will not touch her unless..." The sentence trailed off. Everyone knew what "unless" meant. Unless you could pay. Joseph looked at the familiar, tired faces around him. They meant well, but they were just as poor as he was. The kind of money it would take to get a private doctor was something he had never even seen in his life. That night, Joseph didn't sleep. He sat by her side, holding her hand, listening to her uneven breathing. Every so often, she'd mutter something, sometimes his father's name, sometimes words he couldn't understand. By dawn, her fever had risen. And then, like fate had taken pity on him, Joseph saw it. A black Range Rover, gleaming under the early sun, slowing as it approached the corner of Adeola Street. The man who stepped out was dressed in a spotless white coat. People whispered his name with reverence, Dr. Williams. The billionaire surgeon. The miracle worker. The man Joseph had only heard of in market gossip, whose clinic had glass walls and air conditioning. Joseph didn't think. He just ran. The billionaire doctor turned. For a moment, Joseph forgot the heat, forgot the noise of Lagos traffic, forgot even his own name. Those sharp, intelligent eyes studied him like he was a strange creature washed up from a lagoon. "What is it, boy?" Dr. Williams's voice was deep, clipped, the kind of tone that didn't invite small talk. Joseph's chest rose and fell in ragged breaths. "It's my mama, she's sick. The baby's coming, she's bleeding, please." A horn blared. A danfo bus screeched to a stop, the conductor shouting insults at another driver. The doctor adjusted the strap of his leather bag, frowning at the chaos around them. "You should take her to a clinic." Joseph shook his head wildly. "They won't take her without money. Please, sir, I beg you." For a second, something flickered in the doctor's eyes, a hesitation, maybe even sympathy. Then his phone rang. He answered, turning slightly away, speaking in quick English Joseph barely understood. Words like board meeting and investors floated past his ears. Joseph clutched the doctor's sleeve. "Sir, she will die." The doctor pulled his arm free. "Look, boy," he said, glancing at the Range Rover. "I have somewhere important to be. There are public hospitals. Try General." He stepped into the car. The engine purred to life. Joseph's heart thudded. This couldn't be the end. He couldn't just let the man drive away while Mama lay on their thin mattress, fighting for breath. Without thinking, Joseph ran to the front of the car and spread his arms wide. The driver's hand hovered over the horn, but the doctor gestured for him to wait. "You're wasting my time," the doctor said through the open window. Joseph's voice cracked, but he forced the words out. "If it was your wife, sir, if it was your baby, would you drive away?" Silence. For the first time, the doctor's gaze softened, just a fraction. Then he sighed. "Where do you live?" Joseph's hope shot up like a kite. "Makoko, sir. Near the market." The doctor's expression changed instantly. He leaned back, shaking his head. "Makoko? That place is a death trap. No, I can't." And with that, he motioned for the driver to go. The Range Rover rolled forward, forcing Joseph to step aside or be crushed. He watched the black vehicle disappear into the sea of yellow buses, his throat tight, his vision blurring. By the time he reached home, the sun was already fierce. The air inside the shack was heavy with the smell of sweat and something metallic, blood. Mama's skin was hot to the touch, her lips cracked. She tried to smile when she saw him, but it came out as a grimace. "Joseph," she whispered, "did you find help?" His throat closed up. He lied. "Yes, Mama. Help is coming." Her eyes softened. She closed them, her breathing shallow. Hours dragged by. Neighbors came and went, offering small bits of food, cold cloths for her forehead, whispered prayers. The baby kicked again, but this time the movement seemed weaker. That was when Joseph made up his mind. If the billionaire wouldn't come to Makoko, Joseph would take Mama to him. The first challenge was moving her. She could barely stand, and every step sent a gasp of pain through her. A neighbor, Uncle Tund, offered his old wheelbarrow. "It's all I have," he said apologetically. Joseph patted the inside with blankets and helped Mama into it, ignoring her protests. Then, with both hands gripping the handles, he began to push. The wheelbarrow creaked under her weight. Sweat ran down his back, soaking his shirt. The midday sun beat down mercilessly, and the smell of roasting meat, exhaust fumes, and open drains mixed into a dizzying haze. Still he pushed. Past the market, past the lagoon, past streets where no one knew his name. At the corner of Adeola Street, the same place he had met the doctor earlier, he stopped. The Range Rover was nowhere in sight. But he knew the doctor's clinic was nearby, the one with the glass walls and the shiny logo. He pushed the wheelbarrow forward until a security guard stepped into his path. "Hey, Where do you think you're going? The guard barked, eyeing the wheelbarrow with disgust. Joseph's heart pounded. Please, my mama. She needs the doctor. The guard shook his head. No charity cases here. Move along. If you're still watching till this moment, you're the reveal MVP. Where are you watching from, and what time is it presently? Let us know in the comment section. The black sedan slowed to a stop, its polished body gleaming under the harsh Lego sun. The security guard straightened, his tone instantly shifting. From the back seat stepped a tall woman in a tailored green Ankara dress, her heels clicking sharply against the pavement. Her hair was perfectly braided, her gold earrings swaying as she moved. But it wasn't her style that caught Joseph's attention. It was the way the guard suddenly lowered his eyes and muttered, "Good afternoon, Madame Beezy." She gave a curt nod and was about to walk past when her gaze landed on Joseph, on the wheelbarrow, on the frail figure of his mother, her head resting limply on a folded blanket. She stopped. Her eyes narrowed, not in cruelty, but in curiosity. "What's going on here?" she asked the guard. Madam," the guard said quickly. "This boy is trying to bring a sick mother into the clinic. You know the rules. No charity." Madame Beezy held up a hand, silencing him. She stepped closer, her shadow falling over Joseph. "What's wrong with your mother?" Joseph swallowed hard. She's having a baby. But she's bleeding. Please, Ma. I came earlier to beg the doctor, but, he hesitated, glancing at the guard. She tilted her head. But he refused? Joseph didn't answer. He didn't have to. Her eyes softened, just for a moment, before she straightened again. "Take her inside," she said firmly. The guard blinked. "Madam, I said take her inside." Her voice carried the kind of authority that didn't need to shout twice. They wheeled Mama through the clinic's glass doors, and for a moment, Joseph felt like he had stepped into another world. Cool air brushed his face. The scent of antiseptic replaced the smell of the streets. Everything gleamed, the white tiles, the polished counters, even the potted plants seemed too perfect to be real. Nurses hurried forward, lifting Mama from the wheelbarrow onto a gurney. A blood pressure cuff, an oxygen mask, quick hands working in unison. Joseph's heart pounded with a fragile hope. "Bring Dr. Williams," Madame Beezy told one of the nurses. The nurse hesitated, but he said, "Tell him it's for me," she said sharply. Minutes later, the doctor appeared in the doorway, his expression already tight. When his eyes fell on Joseph, they narrowed. "What is this?" he asked. Madame Beezy crossed her arms. "A woman in labor. She's bleeding heavily. She needs surgery." The doctor's jaw clenched. "We have protocols. You can't just bring in." "I can," she cut in. "And I did." They stared at each other for a long moment, two storms meeting in the middle of the hallway. Then, with a frustrated sigh, the doctor turned to the nurses. "Prep the theater." Joseph exhaled shakily, gripping the railing of the gurney as they wheeled Mama away. But just as relief began to settle in his chest, a hand landed on his shoulder. It was the doctor. "You can't stay here," he said flatly. "Go home. We'll call you if..." "If what?" Joseph asked, his voice trembling. The doctor didn't answer. He simply walked away. In the waiting room, Joseph sat on the edge of a hard plastic chair, his knees bouncing. Every sound, the beeping of machines, the shuffle of footsteps, made him look up, hoping for news. Madame Beezy sat beside him, her expression unreadable. "You're a brave boy," she said quietly. "Most would have given up." Joseph stared at his hands. "I couldn't. She's all I have." She looked at him for a long moment, then asked, "Do you know who I am?" He shook his head. "I'm the doctor's sister." The words hit him like cold water. She leaned closer. "And I owe your mother a debt from many years ago. She once saved my life, when no one else would help." Joseph's mouth opened, but no words came out. Before he could respond, the double doors to the operating theater swung open. A nurse rushed out, her face pale. "Where's Dr. Williams?" she called urgently. "We've hit complications. We need him now." Madame Beezy stood instantly, but the nurse's next words froze them both. "He left the building 15 minutes ago." The words echoed in Joseph's mind like the clang of metal on stone. He left the building. For a moment, Joseph thought he'd misheard. Doctors didn't just walk out in the middle of a surgery. Not when a life, two lives, hung in the balance. He turned to the nurse, his voice breaking. Where did he go? She shook her head, still breathless from running. I don't know. One of the orderlies said he got a call, then grabbed his coat and left. Madame Beezy's face hardened. Find him, she ordered. But Joseph was already moving. His legs carried him past the waiting room, past the reception desk, out into the thick Lagos afternoon. The street was a blur, vendors shouting over roasted corn, Okada drivers honking, the air heavy with exhaust fumes. Somewhere in all this chaos, the man who could save his mother was walking away. Joseph darted down Adeola Street, scanning every face, every car that passed. Then he spotted it, the black Range Rover, sliding smoothly into traffic. His heart leapt. Mama, hold on, he whispered and ran. The car was already half a block ahead. Joseph dodged between hawkers and startled pedestrians, his bare feet slapping against the hot pavement. The driver's window was up, tinted so dark he couldn't see inside. He banged on the side of the SUV. Dr. Williams. The car didn't stop. It accelerated. Joseph. He turned to see Madame Beezy running after him, her green dress catching the sunlight. But she was too far behind, and he couldn't stop now. He sprinted alongside the SUV until the traffic light turned red. Panting, he reached for the handle, but it was locked. The doctor's face appeared for just a second as he glanced sideways. Their eyes met. Then the light turned green. The Range Rover roared forward, leaving Joseph in a cloud of dust. He stood there, chest heaving, fighting the sting in his eyes. He couldn't understand. Why would a man with the power to save his mother run away from her? Madame Beezy caught up, clutching her side. Joseph, listen to me. He must have a reason. Williams doesn't do anything without a reason. I don't care about his reason. Joseph's voice cracked. She's dying. Beezy's gaze softened. I know. That's why we have to find him before it's too late. They flagged down an Okada. The rider looked them over suspiciously. Where we they go? To the doctor, Joseph said quickly. Follow his car if you see it. The Okada weaved into traffic, darting between buses and taxis, the wind slapping Joseph's face. Every second felt like a drop of sand falling through an hourglass. They didn't find the Range Rover. Instead, they found themselves in front of a gated compound in Victoria Island. Two armed guards stood at the entrance, their rifles resting against their chests. This is his house, Beezy said quietly. The guards crossed their arms. No visitors. It's urgent, she insisted. He's in the middle of a surgery. Not our business, one guard cut in. You want to see him, you wait until he calls you. Joseph stepped forward. Please. My mother is. The guard's tone turned sharp. Small boy, go before I chase you away. Joseph clenched his fists. For a moment, he considered shouting, forcing his way in, but the sight of the rifles froze him. Beezy pulled him aside. We're wasting time here. If Williams left the clinic, it means the call he got was important. And if I know him, it has something to do with family. Family? Joseph asked, frowning. Yes, she said. But if I'm right, we may not like what we find. They headed back into the Okada, weaving through Lagos traffic again. With every passing minute, Joseph imagined Mama's breathing slowing, her voice fading. He couldn't shake the image of her lying pale and still on that gurney. Then Beezy's phone rang. She answered quickly, her voice tense. Yes? Where? We're on the way. She hung up and met Joseph's eyes. That was one of my contacts. The doctor's not at home. He's at, she hesitated, as if unsure whether to say it. Where? Joseph demanded. Her jaw tightened. The old Idido Wharf. Joseph blinked. The port? What's he doing there? I don't know, she said. But whatever it is, it's more dangerous than you think. The Okada veered sharply, heading toward the waterfront. The air grew thick with the smell of salt and diesel. Cranes loomed overhead, rusted and silent, while stray dogs picked at scraps along the road. In the distance, Joseph spotted it. The black Range Rover, parked beside a row of abandoned warehouses. Beezy grabbed his arm. Listen to me. Whatever we see here, we can't tell anyone. Understand? Joseph nodded, though his stomach churned with unease. They crept closer, hiding behind a stack of crates. The warehouse doors swung open, and there stood Dr. Williams, but he wasn't alone. Beside him was a man Joseph had never seen before, holding a suitcase that clinked ominously when it moved. The clink of the suitcase echoed in Joseph's ears like the ticking of a bomb. Dr. Williams didn't look like a man on a rescue mission. He looked like someone trying not to be seen. The other man, tall, dark-skinned, with a scar curling from his ear to his jaw, leaned in close. His voice was low, but Joseph caught fragments. Papers are inside. Transfer is tomorrow night. Joseph's heart pounded. This wasn't right. The doctor's hands, the same hands that could steady a scalpel, were clenched into fists. Beezy gripped Joseph's shoulder. Stay still, she whispered. We can't let them see us. But Mama. I know, she said quickly. We'll get back to her. But first, we need to know why Williams left that surgery. The scar-faced man popped the suitcase open. Stacks of US dollars stared back at them, neat as newly pressed clothes. Joseph's mouth went dry. The doctor didn't flinch. Instead, he pulled out a thin envelope from his coat and handed it over. Scarface peered inside, nodded once, and shut the suitcase with a snap. Beezy's brow furrowed. That envelope, she murmured. It's not just money changing hands here. That's something else. What? Joseph asked. Something people kill for, she said. Suddenly, the doctor's phone rang. He glanced at the screen, and for a brief second, his expression cracked, shock then fear. He answered sharply. Yes? How bad? I'm coming. Then, without another word, he turned and strode to his Range Rover. Scarface stayed behind, wheeling the suitcase toward the far end of the wharf. Joseph ducked lower, behind the crates, heart thudding so loudly he was sure they'd hear it. The SUV engine growled to life. It rolled past, close enough that Joseph could smell the faint scent of antiseptic and cologne. Beezy's voice was urgent. We follow. Now. They scrambled toward the Okada, waving frantically at the rider. Hospital fast. Beezy ordered. The Okada tore away from the waterfront, the city blurring around them. Joseph clung to Beezy's waist, mind spinning. Why was the doctor at the port instead of saving his mother? And what was in that envelope? Traffic thickened as they neared the hospital. Horn blasts and shouts filled the air. The Okada weaved recklessly, skimming past buses and taxis. When they finally skidded to a stop outside the hospital, Joseph leapt off and ran inside. The fluorescent lights burned his eyes after the dimness of the street. Nurse Saad was at the desk. Her face fell when she saw him. Joseph, I was looking for you, she said quietly. Your mother, her condition is worse. The words were like a punch to his chest. Where is she? She's still in the theater. We're doing what we can, but without the doctor. She broke off, glancing toward the corridor. Joseph turned just in time to see Dr. Williams striding through the doors, his coat billowing. The staff fell silent as he passed. He went straight into the operating room without a word. Beezy caught Joseph's arm. We don't say anything about the port. Not yet. Joseph wanted to protest, to demand an explanation, but the doors to the theater had already swung shut behind the doctor. Minutes crawled like hours. Joseph paced the hallway, staring at the clock. Then, faint but clear, a sound cut through the tense silence, a baby's cry. Joseph froze. Beezy stood, eyes wide. The doors opened. Dr. Williams stepped out, his face unreadable. You can see her soon, he said quietly. She's resting. The baby is healthy. Relief crashed over Joseph like a wave, but it was tangled with confusion. Why had the doctor left, only to return and save her life? Beezy's gaze stayed locked on the doctor. Thank you, Williams, she said softly. He gave a short nod, then walked away down the corridor. Joseph watched him go, noticing for the first time that the side pocket of his coat was empty. The envelope was gone. That night, Joseph sat beside his sleeping mother, the baby wrapped in a hospital blanket beside her. The room was quiet, until a shadow fell across the doorway. Scarface. His eyes locked on Joseph, and in his hand, glinting under the dim light, was the same envelope the doctor had given him. The shadow in the doorway didn't move. It stretched across the hospital floor like a dark stain, swallowing the pale light from the corridor. Scarface leaned on the doorframe, casual as if he belonged there, but his eyes were sharp, searching, calculating. Joseph's breath caught. "You've grown bold," Scarface said, his voice a slow drag of gravel. Joseph didn't answer. He glanced at his mother, still breathing shallowly, then at the newborn sleeping peacefully in the bassinet. Scarface stepped inside, the envelope swinging lightly in his hand. "Your mother's life? Quite the miracle." He stopped at the foot of the bed. "Miracles," he said, "always come at a price." Joseph felt Beezy slip into the room behind Scarface, silent as a shadow herself. Her eyes flicked to Joseph, warning him to stay calm. "What do you want?" Joseph asked, forcing the words out through a dry throat. Scarface smiled, not kindly. "I want to make sure you understand the situation. The doctor owes me, and now because of him you owe me too." The envelope landed on the blanket covering Joseph's mother. It made no sound, but Joseph could feel its weight, more than paper, heavier than gold. Beezy's hand brushed Joseph's arm. "Don't touch it," she whispered. Scarface tilted his head. "Curious, aren't you? What's inside? Why the doctor carried it? Why I came here tonight?" He took a slow step closer. Joseph's mind raced. If he refused, Scarface might harm his mother. If he agreed, he might be pulled into something far worse. "What's inside?" Joseph asked, stalling for time. Scarface chuckled, low and humorless. "Information. Enough to ruin men more powerful than your doctor. Enough to buy lives or end them." Beezy moved subtly, positioning herself between Scarface and the newborn. "You should leave," she said coldly. "This is a hospital, not your playground." His eyes slid to her, and for the first time, there was a flicker of recognition. "Beezy. Ah, the journalist." Joseph's head snapped toward her. "Journalist?" Beezy didn't look at him. "Not now." Scarface smirked. "So that's how you found the port. You've been sniffing around my business for weeks." He stepped back toward the door, but his voice hardened. "Tell the doctor. He has 3 days to return what's mine, or I collect in other ways." The door clicked shut behind him. For a long moment, the only sound was the steady beep of the heart monitor. Joseph turned to Beezy, his voice shaking. "What did he mean, journalist?" She sighed. "I was investigating smuggling routes through the port. Dr. Williams's name came up in whispers. I thought it was corruption, maybe money laundering. I didn't expect," she gestured toward the envelope. "This." Joseph's gaze went back to the envelope. "If it's dangerous, we should destroy it." Beezy shook her head sharply. "No. This might be the only leverage we have. If Scarface comes for your mother again." Her voice trailed off as footsteps approached the door. The door opened. Dr. Williams stepped inside. He looked exhausted, but his eyes locked instantly on the envelope. "You have something that belongs to me," he said quietly. Joseph stood, blocking his path. "You left my mother to meet Scarface. You gave him this. Now he's here, threatening us. I want to know why." For a heartbeat, the doctor's face was unreadable. Then, without warning, he reached into his coat and pulled out a small, black device, a voice recorder. "Listen," he said, pressing play. Scarface's voice crackled through the speaker, saying words that made Joseph's stomach twist. "Transfer is tomorrow night. The shipment arrives in Lagos." Beezy's eyes widened. "You recorded him?" The doctor nodded. "That envelope contains proof, documents, signatures, the entire chain of corruption. I gave it to him to make him believe I'd given up. But it was bait. Now we have a chance to bring him down." Joseph looked between them. "Then why 3 days?" The doctor's expression darkened. "Because in 3 days, the shipment isn't gold or drugs. It's people." Beezy's breath caught. Joseph felt his knees weaken. Scarface wasn't just dangerous, he was a predator. And the clock was already ticking. The doctor stepped closer. I need your help, both of you. If we fail, he glanced at Joseph's mother and the baby. He'll come for them first. The baby stirred, letting out a tiny cry. Outside, a sudden bang echoed in the hallway, loud enough to make all three of them freeze. The doctor's voice was low. He's not waiting 3 days. The bang in the hallway was followed by shouting. Then silence. The kind that makes your skin itch. Dr. Williams's hand shot up. Don't move, he whispered. Beezy's eyes flicked to the door. That wasn't just a noise. Someone's here. Joseph's heart pounded so hard it hurt. Footsteps. Heavy. Coming closer. The doctor moved to the door, peering through the narrow glass pane. His shoulders stiffened. They're here. Joseph swallowed. Scarface. The doctor's voice was grim. Not alone. The footsteps stopped. Then the door handle twisted, slowly, deliberately. Beezy stepped in front of the bassinet, shielding the baby. Joseph slid to his mother's side, ready to push her bed if he had to. The handle turned again. Locked. A voice outside, low, rough. Break it. The doctor spun to Joseph. We need to leave. Now. He yanked open the small side door that led to the supply corridor. The smell of disinfectant and dust rushed in. Beezy scooped up the baby. Go. They ran. Joseph's mother's bed squealed on its wheels as he pushed it down the narrow hallway. Every bump in the floor felt like it would wake the whole hospital. Behind them, the crash of the main door being kicked in. Shouts. Left, the doctor barked. They veered sharply, almost tipping the bed. Joseph's shoulder slammed into the wall. Another crash. The sound of boots hitting the linoleum floor, getting closer. They burst through a door into the night air. The hospital's back lot was dim, lit only by a flickering street lamp. A shadow detached itself from the darkness. Scarface. He stepped forward, slow and confident, as if the night itself belonged to him. You really thought you could run, doctor? The doctor didn't answer. His eyes darted to the left, toward a narrow alley. Joseph, he said, take your mother and go. Don't look back. But Joseph didn't move. And you? I'll keep him busy. Scarface smiled. Oh, I'm counting on it. 2 more men emerged from the shadows, blocking the alley. Beezy's grip on the baby tightened. The doctor stepped forward and then, without warning, hurled the envelope into the air. It burst open, papers fluttering like trapped birds. Scarface's eyes flicked upward, just for a second. Run, the doctor shouted. Joseph pushed the bed toward the only gap, between 2 parked ambulances. Beezy was right behind him. Shouts erupted. Boots pounded on asphalt. The bed rattled violently over the uneven ground. One wheel caught in a crack. Joseph yanked hard. It came free, but the noise was deafening. Faster. Beezy hissed. They reached the far end of the lot, only to find the gate chain shut. Behind them, Scarface's men were closing in. Joseph looked around desperately, then saw it, a small service door in the wall, half hidden behind a dumpster. He ran for it, muscles screaming as he pushed the bed. The door was locked. Beezy shoved the baby into Joseph's arms. Hold him. She pulled a hairpin from her head, jamming it into the lock. The men were almost on them. The pin slipped. Come on, come on. The lock clicked. The door swung open, and they shoved the bed inside just as the first man rounded the corner. Shouts followed them into the narrow passage beyond. They emerged into a side street, the noise of Lagos nightlife washing over them. Honking horns, music, shouting vendors. For a moment, Joseph thought they'd lost them. Then he saw Scarface step out from the opposite side of the street, calm, smiling. How? Beezy breathed. Scarface tapped his temple. You forget, I know this city better than anyone. He lifted his hand, and a car screeched to a stop beside him. The back door opened. Inside, a figure Joseph had never seen before. The man wore a pristine white kaftan, his eyes cold as marble. Scarface's voice was almost respectful. Meet the one I truly work for. The man spoke for the first time. You have something of mine. Joseph's stomach turned. The envelope was gone, left behind in the hospital lot. And now they were trapped between Scarface and someone even worse. The man in white didn't blink. Not once. His gaze was fixed on the tiny bundle in Beezy's arms, as if nothing else in the world existed. The air between them felt heavier than the Lagos night. Even the city's chaos seemed to fade. The honking horns, the shouting traders, the hum of generators. Scarface stood beside him like a loyal shadow. Dr. Williams finally caught up, panting, sweat dripping down his temple. "Leave them out of this," he said, his voice raw. The man in white tilted his head. "You speak as if you have a choice." Beezy clutched the baby tighter. "Who are you?" He smiled faintly, the kind of smile that never reached the eyes. "They call me Alhaji Joseph Bello." The name made the doctor stiffen. "You're supposed to be dead," the doctor said. Alhaji's chuckle was slow and deliberate. "Dead men do not collect debts. And I have come for mine." Joseph's small voice trembled. "She's just a baby. She can't owe you anything." Alhaji's eyes shifted to him, and for the first time, Joseph felt like prey. "It is not the child who owes me," Alhaji said. "It is her father." Beezy blinked. Her father. She looked at the doctor, but he wouldn't meet her eyes. Scarface's smirk widened. "Oh, he didn't tell you? This little miracle," he gestured to the baby, "is not fatherless after all." Beezy's lips trembled. "Tell me it's not you, Williams." The doctor's silence was an answer. Joseph's head spun. He had always imagined his baby sister's father as someone far away, someone who didn't care. But this man, the one who had saved his mother's life, had been here all along. Alhaji stepped closer. "The child carries more than his blood. She carries a claim to something that belongs to me." Beezy's voice cracked. "What claim?" Alhaji's smile returned. "The inheritance of the Bello family. My family." The doctor finally looked up. "I walked away from your family's corruption. I wanted nothing to do with your dirty empire. And yet," Alhaji said softly, "you brought my bloodline into the world. That child is mine, and you will give her to me." Joseph's chest tightened. "You can't take her." Scarface laughed. "And who will stop us, boy?" "You." The night seemed to close in around them. Beezy took a step back, pressing the baby to her chest, as if she could melt into the wall. The doctor's voice was calm, but his hands shook. "You'll have to kill me first." Alhaji's eyes narrowed. "If that is the price." He raised his hand, and from the shadows, more men appeared. 6, 8, maybe more. Joseph's mind raced. There was no escape now. Not through the alleys. Not past Scarface. But then he remembered something. The small silver whistle his mother had given him years ago, for emergencies. She had told him it belonged to his grandfather, a man who had once been a king in his village. Without thinking, Joseph reached into his pocket. The whistle was cold against his fingers. He lifted it to his lips and blew. The sound was sharp, piercing. It didn't belong to the city. It was older, wilder. Alhaji froze. His men hesitated. Some even stepped back. The doctor stared at Joseph as if seeing him for the first time. "Where did you get that?" Joseph lowered the whistle. "From Mama." Beezy's eyes widened. "Williams, you know what that means." He nodded slowly. "It means Alhaji isn't the only one with a claim tonight." Alhaji's composure cracked for the first time. That whistle should have been destroyed. If the wrong people hear it. From somewhere deep in the night came an answering call. Drums. Slow, steady. Growing louder. Alhaji's men shifted uneasily. Scarface's smirk was gone. The doctor's voice was low. "You've awakened the wrong bloodline, Alhaji." The cloaked figures fanned out, moving like shadows given life. Their spears gleamed under the dim streetlight, tips etched with symbols Joseph didn't recognize. But something in his blood did. The leader stepped forward. His voice was deep, like earth after rain. "Joseph Adeyemi, son of Zainab Adeyemi, grandson of Oba Femi Adeyemi, you have called us." Joseph's breath caught. I didn't mean to." The man raised a hand. "Blood calls to blood. We are here because you are in danger." Alhaji's jaw tightened. "This is not your fight. The boy is nothing to you." The leader's eyes glinted. "He is everything to us." His grandfather once saved our people. That debt remains. Scarface shifted uneasily, his hand on the knife at his belt. We can take them. No, Al-Haji snapped. His usual smirk was gone. His voice held a strain Joseph had never heard before. Dr. Williams stepped closer to Joseph and Beezy. If you want to end this, Al-Haji, you'll have to go through me. Al-Haji's gaze slid to the baby in Beezy's arms. I don't want to hurt anyone, but the child belongs in my family. She is the heir to what is rightfully ours. Beezy's voice was steel. She belongs with her mother and her brother. The leader of the cloaked warriors took another step forward. Perhaps the child's future should not be decided by those who have spilled blood for power. His eyes locked on Al-Haji. We know the truth of your inheritance, built on betrayal, paid for in lives. Al-Haji's face darkened. Be careful, old man. The leader's voice was calm. You threaten me, but tonight you are outnumbered. You have no claim here. Al-Haji's men tightened their grip on their weapons, but Joseph saw the uncertainty in their eyes. The drums in the distance had grown louder, and with every beat, more cloaked figures appeared, surrounding the street. Joseph's heart pounded. He didn't understand all of it, why the whistle mattered, why these warriors knew his name, but he knew one thing. This was his family's fight. He stepped forward, standing between Al-Haji and the baby. You can't have her. You can't have us. Scarface laughed bitterly. Brave words for a street rat. Joseph didn't flinch. Street rats survive. We learn to bite. The leader glanced at Joseph with a flicker of pride. Spoken like your grandfather. Al-Haji took a slow breath. If you walk away now, I will forget this insult. But if you force me to fight... The leader cut him off. The fight is already over. You lost the moment the boy blew that whistle. The street seemed to hold its breath. Then, in one swift motion, Al-Haji signaled his men. But instead of attacking, they stepped back. One by one, they melted into the shadows, leaving their leader standing alone. Scarface lingered for a heartbeat longer, his eyes locked on Joseph. This isn't over, boy. Then he turned and followed the others. Al-Haji's smirk returned, faint but dangerous. Enjoy your victory, doctor. But remember, every debt comes due. And with that, he disappeared into the night. The drums faded. The cloaked warriors lowered their spears. Beezy let out a trembling breath. It's over. The leader shook his head. No. This was only the first battle. The child's future will be contested again. Dr. Williams looked at Joseph. You saved her tonight. You saved all of us. Joseph felt the weight of the whistle in his hand. He wasn't sure if it made him proud or afraid. The leader reached into his cloak and pulled out a small leather pouch. This belonged to your grandfather. Keep it. One day you will need it. Joseph took it, his fingers brushing the worn leather. Inside was something heavy, but he didn't open it. Not yet. As the warriors faded back into the night, Dr. Williams placed a hand on Joseph's shoulder. Come on. Let's get your mother and sister somewhere safe. Beezy smiled through her tears. Home. The doctor's eyes softened. Yes, home. But as they walked away, Joseph couldn't shake the feeling that somewhere in the city, Al-Haji